Hello again. We're going to talk about writing a working claim or a working thesis. The terms claim and thesis are really interchangeable. They mean exactly the same thing. Thesis is used mainly in the humanities, especially in English classes. Claim is used in other disciplines more often. So it's good to know both terms, and we will use them interchangeably in this class. Let's look at a definition of a working claim. A working claim, or working thesis, is a work in progress. It's a draft of the claim that you're going to be using in your paper. And it's subject to revision as you work through your research and writing process. The only reason that we call it a working claim or a working thesis is because it indicates that I realize that what you turn in as a working claim is not necessarily going to be the same claim that ends up in your paper, because you'll revise it and improve it, and you might find as you're writing your paper that you leave out some of the reasons that you thought you were going to discuss, or you add a reason that you didn't think you were going to discuss, or you reorganize the paper for some reason. But eventually, the working claim becomes the actual claim or the actual thesis that appears at the end of the introduction to the paper that you turn in. A claim or a thesis statement has two parts. One part, usually the first part, names the topic. And then the second part makes a comment on the topic. Every statement in your paper is then going to work to prove or at least demonstrate that the comment that you make in the second part of the claim is valid regarding the topic that you're discussing. That's what your paper will do. When we talk about focusing, when we talk about focusing on your thesis, what we mean is that every sentence in the paper needs to work to prove that the comment that you make in the claim is true about the topic that you name in the claim. Now, there are actually two types of thesis statements or claims that are acceptable. A weak claim or thesis statement is acceptable in that it's better than not having any claim or thesis. But it's really a very weak element in the paper, and it's really better to avoid them. So let's look at what a weak claim is. A weak claim names the topic. All claims name the topic. And it makes a comment on the topic, but the comment it makes is very vague or general. Here's an example based on the paper that I'm using as an example as we go through this first paper. Okay. Supporters state that antidepressants should be available by prescription to people under 18 for several reasons. Critics, on the other hand, state that antidepressants should not be available by prescription to people under 18 for different reasons. Now, we have a two-sentence claim here because it's a very wordy claim, and in many cases you will find that your claim or your thesis statement for this first paper, or any time that you're comparing, probably needs to be two sentences instead of one. The wording would get too awkward and too difficult for readers to understand. So if we look at our two sentences together, yeah, it names the topic. It says that the supporters state that antidepressants should be available and critics state that antidepressants should not be available. That's the topic. But the comments that it makes are very, very vague to the point that they're really useless. It says that supporters state that they should be available for several reasons. Well, that doesn't really tell the reader anything. And the critics say that they shouldn't be available for different reasons. still, a weak thesis is better than nothing. It's better to have a weak claim at the end of your introduction than to have no claim at all. But it's definitely not going to contribute to a good grade on your paper. What you want is a strong claim or a strong thesis. Bum, 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 bum. Now, a strong claim or a strong thesis names the topic, of course, and it makes a comment that lists the specific reasons, and that's in Tolman terms, the subtopics, that will be discussed in the paper. In fact, the final claim that ends up being in the paper that you turn in to me will not only name the reasons, but it will name the reasons in the order that you discuss them in the paper. That's one of the things that differentiates a final claim or thesis from a working claim or thesis. You may find as you write your paper that what you think are the most important points end up not being. So you reorganize the way that you discuss the reasons in your paper. So you're going to revise your working claim or your working thesis so that the organization in the list of reasons, which is called the plan of development, is organized in the same way that the paper is organized. Let's look at an example of a strong claim or a strong thesis, again working with my antidepressants. Supporters state that antidepressants should be available by prescription to people under 18 because side effects might actually be due to depression. Antidepressants are the most effective way to treat clinical depression, and suicide is frequently the result of untreated depression. Critics, on the other hand, state that antidepressants should not be available to people under 18 because the effects of the medications have on developing brains is unknown. It should probably be are unknown. Sorry about that. And antidepressants increase the risk of suicide. So here we know, looking at this, not only do we know that we're going to talk about what the supporters say and what the critics say, but we know the specific reasons that the supporters give that we're going to discuss in our paper, and the specific reasons that the critics give that we are going to discuss in our paper. The reason that a strong claim is so much better and is preferred and will definitely contribute to a better grade in the paper is because a strong claim or thesis helps both writers and readers. Having a strong working claim helps you as a writer. It helps you organize your paper, or at least gives you an organizational scheme to start off with. And it helps you group your ideas together because it gives you the list of the reasons you're going to discuss, and that in turn will lead you to an understanding of where data should appear in the paper. And it keeps you from switching back and forth between the reasons and offering data in the wrong places. So it helps you as a writer stay organized to have a strong working claim or a strong working thesis to begin with. And the strong final claim helps the reader prepare to understand and remember the writer's points. A strong claim is not something that is just one of those English teacher things, and we're the only people who really are interested in it. It actually has a cognitive value to your readers. We are beginning to learn, and I did a year of graduate work in cognitive psychology. We're beginning to understand what happens in people's brains when they read. One of the things they do is they make predictions about what they're going to be reading. And the closer that their predictions are to what they actually read, the better they understand the information and the better they remember it. If you think of the brain as a series of filing cabinets, which isn't really how it works, but just isn't for the sake of argument, let's say that it is. Okay? What a strong claim or a strong thesis does is it tells the reader which drawers to open in the filing cabinets to file away the information that you're going to give them. That's going to help them understand what you're saying in your paper a lot better, and it's going to help them to remember it. And as a writer, of course, that's what you want. You want your reader to understand what you're saying, and you want them to remember it for the rest of their lives because, of course, it's so important. There are certain statements that are not claims. People think they're claims, they put them in their paper as if they're claims, but they are not claims, and you do not want to use them in any paper, and you certainly don't want to use them in papers for this course. Any sentence that makes a statement about your paper is not a claim. For example, my paper is about whether antidepressants should be available by prescription to people under 18 is not a claim. Remember what we said a claim was? That it names the topic and then it makes a comment about the topic. Okay, the topic that you're naming in this claim is your paper. So the topic of your paper is your paper. And then the comment that you're making about the topic is that your paper is about antidepressants. Well, that's not a claim. That's not something that your paper is going to prove. And as a matter of fact, you will see sentences like this in articles. You will definitely see them in journal articles, particularly longer ones. And it could even be argued that in a longer paper, that kind of a sentence has a reason to exist. But in papers as short as the papers that we're writing for this class, a sentence like that is a waste of space. What does it tell the reader that they're not going to know? If a reader cannot tell what your paper is about by reading your paper, you've got a lot more problems than that sentence is going to solve. And if they can tell, then all you've done is waste their time, and you've taken up a couple of lines in your paper, which really is not a way to develop a paper, and I'm more interested in whether the discussion is developed well than the actual length. And it's kind of hard to sneak that stuff by me. I've been teaching since 1996, so I've seen just about everything tried. Okay. So don't make statements like that in papers, particularly not in shorter papers, and definitely don't put it in any paper for this course, because I think it's a waste of space, and it actually is just going to irritate me, to be perfectly honest with you. So don't do it. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what a working claim and the final claim, or thesis statement if you prefer, will be. And both of your papers will have claims in them, and you will give me working claims as part of a scratch outline that you'll be doing, and we'll look at that a little bit later. So I hope this helps you to understand what a claim is and what it is not. Thank you very much for viewing this little video. If you have any questions, make sure you email me at deborah.oakey@csn.edu. And what do we know about emails? Yes, you're going to send them from an account other than Canvas. You're going to hear that in your sleep by the end of the semester. Thanks again. We'll talk again soon.